George?
I just have a suggestion, maybe. It's up to you, but we could all move some stuff around so we could elect officials or whatnot, and then get right into the audit if you want. I was thinking after item 4D, we could do that if it was more convenient for you folks. Does that make sense to everybody?
So you want to move, we'll move 5E up after 4D. And then
7A, I was talking about the audit folks, because you wanted to get those in right away. It was just a suggestion for their benefit. So they didn't have to be here all night.
All right, so everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
All right, so you're looking at after we want to move 5.
No, that's a committee assignment. So I think keep going down.
This is
The
the
audit.
agenda.
Oh, down the second page, page 2. Again, it's just a suggestion, but 7A, audit review with the auditors that are here tonight. If you wanted to move that up, I think that could be an appropriate way to do that. Just a suggestion, thought. Doesn't matter to me one way or the other.
Yeah, I'd like to be sensitive to the auditor's time. So I think once we elect the officers, we could put it back in.
After 4D, maybe?
Right here.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move 7A up to 4. We'll make it 4D1. Okay, any other changes to the agenda? If none, reorganization of the board. Do I have, first up is 4A, election of chairperson of the Rockingham School Board. Do I have any nominations?
Hang on, not to get ahead of you, Chris. I'm sorry for the interruption. Point of order, I guess. We got communication and public comment. Do we want to move that until afterwards as well?
I would, just because so the board can, if needs to speak to something, they can. But right now,
Okay.
so we'll move 3. Well, we'll just, you know what, we'll just do it now. Communication and public comment. Anyone who's out there, you can just speak up, raise your hand, because we don't use the chat for the Rockingham School Board. I am not seeing any at this time. So thank you, George. I will move on to reorganization of the school board. 4A, election of chairperson. Do I have any nominees for chairperson of the Rockingham School Board? Priscilla?
I would like to nominate George.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I
We
second.
don't need a second.
Jason Benson.
Okay, do I have any other nominees for chairperson of the Rockingham School Board? Okay, I'd like to cast one ballot for George Smith as chair of the Rockingham School Board. I'll go around and get a yay or nay. Megan? Can't vote.
That wasn't a no.
Oh.
That was I can't vote.
I just casted one vote, and so one vote has been casted. George Smith is chair of the Rockingham School Board. George, the meeting is now yours.
It only takes one vote, huh? Okay.
If you accept.
Yeah, okay, so, all right. Election of vice chairperson. Any nominations for vice chair? Can I make a nomination? Is that okay for the chair to do that?
Yeah.
If nobody else is raising their hand for a nomination, I'd like to nominate Megan Applegate for vice chair. So what do I need a second, right?
Second.
Oh.
Jason Benson.
Second.
Jason Terry seconds. Any other nominations? Okay, all in favor? Priscilla,
Aye.
Jason Terry,
Aye.
Jason Benson.
Aye.
And pending, or, getting certified there for whatever she has to do.
Yeah, so I can speak to that quickly. Is it appropriate to do that? The reason that Megan is not voting right now is because the town clerk's office has been closed off and on the last couple of weeks, and I can relate because I had trouble getting down there myself at a time where someone was there. So she has not been sworn in. So at this time she won't be voting, but she is a very present being in our group. So Megan, if you're willing to take that on, you are elected. Okay, election of clerk. Any nominations for clerk? I think Priscilla was.
I've done clerk in the past and I would be willing to continue with that.
We have a nomination for Priscilla as clerk. I will nominate Priscilla as clerk. Do I have a second? Jason Terry seconds. Any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Jason Benson.
Aye.
Jason Terry.
Aye.
Priscilla.
I guess I can abstain.
And I vote aye as well. Any opposed? Hearing none, very good. Priscilla is the clerk. Election of assistant treasurer. I guess I need a little language around that. We didn't have one of those last year, I don't believe. Is there a purpose for that being here, or is that just like a liaison between the treasurer and the board, or what is the idea of that?
Well, in the past, they've had like a backup if the treasurer was not accessible for the town. Many times that's possible. Then you had an assistant clerk that could sign on their behalf.
Assistant treasurer, right? Okay.
Yeah. The high school decided not to have one, so you have that option as well.
Okay. Any thoughts from, and Megan, your thoughts can be present. I believe you just can't vote. At least that's how I see it. I could be wrong, but any,
But I don't think we've ever had one in the past.
I didn't have to deal,
Well, not for a long time anyway.
I didn't deal with the treasurer at all last year. I don't know. I mean, we can figure that out later on, but,
You did not have one last year.
right. So do we, Flora, I see your hand up. Is the board okay with Flora saying a quick word? I'm seeing head nods. Yeah, go ahead, Flora.
So I know you guys haven't done the assistant treasurer, and your treasurer is Paul Harlow, but so like in different occasions, we need sometimes Paul is a little bit challenging. Like last time we needed to submit some documents to the bank and he was in Florida. So we had to wait over a month to submit documents to the bank.
Okay.
And last time we need to go to the bank, Jack Breyer had to go with us as well because he wasn't available.
Okay.
So
maybe it'd be a benefit just in situations like that. You're saying. Now, I believe Kathleen.
Somebody that we could contact.
Yeah, right. So I think Kathleen Niehawk is our treasurer. Is that right? Or she was last year.
I always deal with Paul Harlow.
Is he?
Kathleen's ours.
Kathleen is the Rockingham, or she was. I don't know about this year. I'm assuming it's the same. I believe I don't believe I saw anybody else on that ballot.
Okay.
So, well, it might be a good idea then, and that if that's the case, to have a backup. Anybody have a burning desire to be a backup, be a assistant treasurer? I mean, as long as it's not added workload for me, I guess I would entertain a nomination for myself or anybody else. I don't really.
I mean, I could do it as clerk too, because I go in to check the stuff. So I could do that too, George, whatever anybody wants.
Okay, I don't think that'd be inappropriate at all. So, all right, well, I'll nominate Priscilla then as assistant treasurer. Are there, oh, I need a second, right? Yeah, I need a second. Anybody?
Technically, no, but
We'll get to that. Get a second anywhere? Priscilla?
I'll second it, but we
Okay.
don't need a second.
All right. So,
Jason just did.
okay. So any other nominations? Hearing none. All in favor of Priscilla as the assistant treasurer? Jason Terry? Jason Benson?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
And yes for me, so she is the assistant treasurer. Okay, moving on to 4D1. Then we'll get back to other appointments. Auditor review with R.H.R. Smith. I will, Flora, if you or auditors, I'll hand it over to you.
So Jason, George, I'll let Flora start after me if she wants to. So I know Flora sent you some last minute documentation. It was last minute because we were working on it right up until right before the board meeting to make sure, we got the latest information. So Flora, you want to let the board know what was shared so they can open their emails if they need to?
Yes, so the auditors made some corrections according to your suggestions to the audit and some updates, and we allocated funds or split them better for your review because we had some of the funds in general funds. So each time you guys were reviewing them, it was maybe confusions as where you guys had put certain amounts. So that was reviewed. So each amount that you guys had will show each of the lines that you guys had suggested and had actually voted on. So with that last reviews, they sent us a final draft and that we had to review and sign. Once we sign, then they send actually the final approved draft. That is the one that I sent the 502. But the difference between one and the other one is just the fact that they take the wording as of a draft off it because it's signed already. So Miranda McDonald will be speaking to you about that.
Hi, Miranda. Welcome.
So if you want to open up the draft and go directly to page 16 of the audit, page 20 of the PDF, which is statement C.
Miranda, if you want, I gave you screen sharing privileges.
Okay.
If you wanted to do it on your end, that might help.
Miranda and Flora, do they have the latest and greatest in front of them where we kind of moved it out to leave no doubt, what money was where?
Well,
Yes, I sent it at around 5:28. I did forward it to them or a little bit before that.
yeah, so just as a, sorry, Flora, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's the last one that Catherine sent around 5:02.
Okay, so just as a point of note, we haven't really had a chance to review, so we're kind of, you'll be leading through, and then, maybe we will probably, after we dive in, we'll have some questions maybe at a later date, not necessarily for the auditors, but just as
and just to know, numbers didn't change, but where they show up did, just to give some further clarification where your money was. And Miranda, if you can just emphasize that based on some of the comments and really kind of what you did, that would be, I think, helpful for everybody to see, in totality where their money is, but in really what column it's residing in now for transparency, for lack of a better way to say it.
Absolutely. And so it starts, and I've shared my screen. So it starts on this balance sheet. With the general fund, what we did was it's the same numbers as the previous audit that you have received. The difference is we broke out the 471, 688 into a committed fund balance, and that's going to be the warned articles for the FY 21, 22, and 23 budgets that were voter approved combined. So that's what that 471, 688 is split out. which leaves just $1,054,000 in assigned in the general fund. This is a good, healthy fund balance. Part of that number you have to remember is we know negotiations with teachers that hasn't been settled, so raises are not included. You know, raises haven't been given, so
Be
some of that.
discussed in open session.
I'm sorry, what?
That should not be discussed in open session. Anything with negotiations, this should not be discussed.
All I'm saying is they haven't been given, so that is falling into that surplus number. I don't know what that number is, but it's just something to keep in mind. And then the capital reserve fund, from the previous document that you had to the current document that you have now, has increased by the $400,000. That's the $300,000 that was approved in March of 2019, plus the $100,000 that was approved in March of 20. So that got moved over into the capital fund, capital reserve fund. So the 1.9 that you originally saw on the previous audit document, it's still there. It's the 1.5, and then plus the $400,000 that got moved into the capital reserve fund. So that's the only difference between what you saw previously and the version that you're seeing now with the numbers. So those are the only changes that were made with your audit with that. So I wanted to go over that just so you're aware that those were the changes that were made currently.
So now you guys don't have to worry about, oh, we got 1.9 and 400,000 of that was supposed to be in capital reserve, which is dedicated in that general fund. We just moved it out of there, you know, by kind of following the wishes, you know, of voter approved articles of the past, and just moved it out of there and put it into a capital reserve fund, you know, which really gets it out of your general fund and puts it where the intent was of you and the voters to put it.
Yeah. And then you can see the on this statement D, or excuse me, statement E, the surplus of general fund of 445,000 for current year.
Yep. And I think the biggest thing, just to make sure we leave no doubt, and please, if you got questions, where it says that restatement, that 479,348, the $1,080,000 under the fund balance, July 1, that money was sitting in there as a capital reserve. And what we said is, let's just move it out of there and put it where it belongs, so that people don't look and say, wow, we've got $1.9 million. No, you don't. Of that 1.9, 479 has been committed to future capital reserve funding. So we've literally moved it, you know, which I think is pretty consistent, you know, with taking it out of like your general education and budget, you know, and putting it where it resides and belongs, under capital reserves, which is what the intent of it was for.
So is that an audit finding? Was it in the wrong place? Is that why? And it should have been? And
No, it wasn't in the wrong place, but it looked like you had, it looked like, Priscilla, you had $1.9 million. And I don't know if it was you, Priscilla, or somebody else is like, does that include the capital money as well? It did. So what we did is literally move that over to the capital reserve fund. So is
Okay,
it a
so
finding? No. You know, is it what the wishes were of the board, then the public? The answer is yes. And we've just actually moved it from your general fund to really kind of what you've titled it, capital reserve.
okay, so the proper way that it's accounted for in this report is under capital reserve funds. Can I ask a further question on those funds then? Is the funds that are other funds that were allocated by the voters, should those also be put in a separate fund, or what happens about that?
Well, I think there was 100,000 this year, Priscilla, that was added to the original balance. And I think Miranda helped me out with food service. I think this question came up last time, whether or not that there was like an appropriation from the general fund to take care of food service too. Was there any other funds besides capital, Miranda, that they moved?
So specifically for Rockingham, you usually have two articles. One is the capital reserve fund and one is to reduce taxes to offset taxes in a future budget. We've separated the second article by making it a committed fund balance. So you specifically see the 471,688. Because it's specifically set up to reduce taxes, which is a general fund. I think I've seen it remain in the general fund, and I've seen it move to a separate fund. I can't tell you one is more correct than the other.
Miranda, can you move, so we can give them some guidance here? Can you move Miranda down 2 pages, please?
Yep.
So to explain, and just to kind of compound, what it is, it said, and Priscilla, I think you asked the question. There's ways of showing it, and what we believe is because you've added that extra article to, quite frankly, I think leave no doubt, Priscilla, as opposed to putting it as part of a budget mechanism to say, okay, in our budgeted line under facilities, we're going to have a budgeted line item of $200,000, which really is our mechanism to move money from our operating budget into that reserve account. Some districts will show it in their operating budget. You actually have a separate warrant article to transfer out. In this past year, as you'll see, $100,000 going into that capital reserve fund. There's other mechanisms on how you can do that, and we believe instead of restricting and leaving that money in the general fund, that it was the intent of that article to literally keep that money separate from your general purpose education fund and to put it where you wanted it, into that capital reserve fund. That's the way it's been presented here, so that you guys don't get confused, Priscilla, that you've got this one pot of money with like 3 different pieces, of it. So that's been moved. Other people do it differently by not having that warrant article and making it part of their budget, which I would say, as Miranda just said, that's a preference thing. I actually think you guys got the perfect mechanism that actually is consistent and follows around with the statute. That's a right way to do it. And we think that this is, Priscilla, the best way, and the most reflective way. So now you don't have to say, oh, that $1.9 million, does that include capital? Does it not include capital? What does that include? Now it doesn't include capital because we actually put the mechanism there to follow along with that voter approved article. So we think it's the best way. We wish more districts would do it your way. Unfortunately, they don't. But we think that, that the way that you do it and the presentation of this is consistent with the statute and consistent with, really what the intent of the board and, and the voters are.
Okay, and one further question. So the 471,688, that's the 3 offset expenditures.
Miranda, can you go to the page so they can see that, please, in the footnote, please? So everybody,
Yep.
if everybody can just look, right here at this statement, you'll see exactly what you just said, Priscilla. You just got to keep reading the document. You'll see, the earmarks here. Keep going, Miranda.
Yeah, Miranda, you just had it a minute ago. It was maybe page 18, page 20, something. Might have been. I don't know. It was right before the page.
Miranda, go back to page 18, please. Yeah. So that page 18, folks, that 471,688, it's got 3 pieces to it. It's got what you use for tax relief. I think you actually use that for 3 subsequent budgets, correct, Miranda?
Yep.
And the total is 471,688. Correct?
Yes.
And what we don't want, Priscilla, is you thinking that you've got $1.5 million available to you when you, for the next 3 years, use some of that money for tax relief, like the statute says, to reduce a future budget. Don't think, just take 471 off the table because you've used that for 3 separate years. for property relief, for all the taxpayers, in your district is the best way I can say it. So we've reduced your total fund balance by that, so you don't recommit it again, and sort of double dip down the road. We don't want you to do that. And after all your commitments and after moving all your voter approved articles of the capital reserve, what's left is that $1 million, that you guys can talk about for future budgets, future capital reserves, future program expansion. That's what really is left after the board has taken off all the earmarks.
How much is left?
About $1 million, correct, Miranda? $1,054,22 on June 30, 20.
Okay, so that can be used for offsetting the 22 budget
Correct.
to help the taxpayers?
Because what may happen is when you use that money for 21 tax relief, if because of COVID, you didn't spend all this money, you got some extra money to repurpose from the state of Vermont, you may very well not have needed any of that money for tax relief. So it rolls over to the next year to allow the board to say, okay, we've got more money than what we expected because we didn't need all that money in 21 because we didn't spend it all. And we got some extra money from the state for this reason or that reason. It will allow you to reappropriate it again next year.
Because I think what we did was we didn't put an article in to as an amount of money because it was just not clear exactly what we had and where we were at. And so we were worried about putting an amount in there to offset our 22 budget because we were told that anything that was left over in 20 automatically has to go to 22. So I don't.
So the statute works, Priscilla, in a way where it allows you to put a special article to move money into a capital reserve, to move money into some other dedicated reserve that the statute allows you to do. And what you don't move, it allows you 2 years down the road to use it for tax relief. So the problem is when you set your budget, that you're basing it on a number that's a year old. So you really gotta, so for like this budget that you set in March for 2022, that's being set, I would argue, based on a number that's a year old and your year's not over. So if you're using some of that money for tax relief, and this actually happened to Burlington, this was a very big publicized thing, which got them into trouble. They were working on math that was a year old. So when it came to town meeting and they said, hey, we're gonna use this amount of money. Nobody looked to see that money existed a year ago, but because of overruns, extra special education costs, other things, that money didn't exist in March at town meeting when they were voting on a number. So the fact that what they voted on for tax relief was an artificial number that they really didn't have because it was a year old, which is why the state gives you 2 years to actually kind of like allow for, getting caught up to say what in real time do we have for money left so we can use it for a future budget, whether it's tax relief, capital funding, whatever the need would be.
Right, so that would go to fiscal year 22 then.
Correct. Correct.
After, because that's what you voted in March, so it goes to 22.
So what we're talking about in 20, Priscilla, really was what you would use for a mechanism for FY22. The problem is when you guess what you had for FY22, well, guess what happens? You've got a whole fiscal year between that number of FY20, and FY22. And if it's a bad fiscal year, you've got additional costs and that money's not there, and you've already gone to the townspeople and said, hey, we need this money. Well, we thought we were going to have it, but we didn't because we didn't realize that 3 or 4 additional special ed kids were going to move into the district, and we were only getting paid X from the state. So we needed to come up with our own money. If that depleted, your fund balance since 20, then you've got a problem. And that's a common problem right now in the state of Vermont, is that you're being asked to kind of approve future budgets based on a forecasted carryover balance. And that's a problem. It's a big problem. So I actually think it should be 3 years, or real time, just to allow the school board some time to make sure whatever their carryover balance is, it's on real time. So if it's FY22, it's the best estimate that you can produce sometime in March before you pass your budget, what you think that number is going to be as of then, not as of June 30, 2020. Does that make sense?
It does, except that unless it's encumbered funds that are specifically identified in June, my understanding is that when the surplus is, then you close the books at that time. So only the encumbered funds would be used. So you should be able to figure out what your surplus is.
So watch where I go with that, Priscilla. So hold that thought.
Years beyond.
Yeah, so watch where I
However,
go. Those
I-
funds were encumbered as of a balance as of 6/30/20. Agreed?
Right?
You're putting a budget together to take to your townspeople in March of 21 for 2022. You with me?
Right. Right.
So that money that exists on June 30th, 20, you're in the middle of a fiscal year. And let's just say you had $1 million like you do on June 30, 2020. You still with me?
Uh-huh.
What if you needed that money that you used for and let's just say you used, I don't know, $400,000 for tax relief for your 21 budget. That's the year that's about to end in 4 months. Still with me?
Yeah, but we
But
don't
you
do
know,
that.
because you wouldn't use that because
Right.
you aren't allowed to
No,
use,
but
you
what
aren't allowed
you-
to use it just for new expenses and new things.
But
That's
what
what you
you
use
would
your
have
current
used it,
budget for.
what you would have used it for, which is the same premise that you're doing 20, back in 19, you would have had a math number in a future budget. Do you agree? You would have had a math
19
number. that-
would go to 21,
Right.
yes.
So what I'm saying is you're now in fiscal year 21. That math is a year old. If something happened where there's additional costs to the school system, special ed usually being the biggest one, money doesn't come in from the Agency of Education, that's going to affect that number that's a year old now. And you may need that and then some in the current fiscal year that hasn't ended yet. And what I'm saying is you really need to prognosticate what that number is in real time when you go to town meeting, because the math that you're taking to town meeting is going to be a year old and it's subject to change because your fiscal year isn't over. There's 4 months in your fiscal year. You got March through June that you may need more money that you didn't think of when you passed all your budgets for whatever the reason be. And that's a common problem with school systems in the state of Vermont. And the statute doesn't do a good job addressing that to say, board, let's get you up to real time, so that you know what your carryover balance is to the best that you can as of town meeting, so that you know how much when you pass that budget you can use forward for anything going down the road, because there's a whole fiscal year that needs to end in 4 months, that really could change and impact your thought process. And that's why they give you that extra year. And I'm just saying that extra year is not enough time. It's just not enough time.
But the statute says it has to be applied to the revenue. And for example, I'm still having trouble making it fit because in the budget line of fiscal 2020, it says we had 500,000 that was sitting there in a reserve that was in the budget line. And if it's budgeted for that year, it was never added to our revenue in 2020.
Right.
Uh,
But it was
Or
never
close
added to your revenue
know,
because it was already there. The
Hang on.
thought is that number was already there so that when you put your budget together for that year or any other year, 2 years down the road, that you were taking to the bank that you already had in your back pocket that $500,000. And what I'm saying is,
but we couldn't use it. We didn't use it because it was never put in the revenue line to be used.
yeah, listen,
Wait,
and I
wait,
agree
wait.
with you, but you
Hang on,
didn't
hang
use
on,
that
hang
in
on, hang on,
budget.
hang on. Everybody stop for a second. I can't hear either one of you when you're both talking, okay? So one at a time, that'd be great. Thank you,
So
guys.
Priscilla, you finish before I go.
Well, what I'm saying is I'm having trouble making that fit because I'm seeing the 500,000 in the budget line for 2020. However, and it was budgeted, it was part of the revenue budget. But when I look at the revenue, it was never put into the revenue to be used that year. And so then we were told that that was surplus that was never used. Well, to me, it was according to the statute, which is 567, it's supposed to go into the revenue. And if it's put into the revenue, it increased ours. And that may be why we're showing the 15,000 as surplus there on that. I don't know. But on that particular budget sheet, it was never put in. Doesn't that we brought in have to go into the revenue? That's what the statute says.
Yeah. And my
can't
answer is, Priscilla, you brought it in through the budget. We can't mix budget with reality. That $500,000 isn't new money. That's old money that you knew you had, that you used as a budget mechanism, and whatever budget line item that you put it in, and we'll just say it's for this year's budget. So if we took $500,000 and added that as new money and put that in as revenue, we'd actually double count that, because that 500,000 is part of your carryover balance on the last day of your last fiscal year. So that's a budgeted number. It's not a real number anymore. Any real number would be, the fact that you budgeted for $100,000 to come in for COVID relief repurpose money, and you got 300,000, so that you would actually have an extra 200,000 of real money. That 500,000 is money you already have. It's money that you had at the end of a fiscal year. And it's $1 million to put it into real terms at the end of June 30, 2020, that you can use, as the statute says, to repurpose in any future budget. But it's not new money. It's carryover money from another fiscal year that the statute allows for you to repurpose again.
Right, so it has to be, well, if it isn't put in as revenue, we can't use it. Because
And
if
we're
it sits
putting
there
it
as
in as
surplus,
budget
it's
money.
never used, like Flora told us, it's surplus never used. Well, that doesn't make sense. It has to go into revenue. That's what the statute says.
So, and it does go into revenue because it's budgeted revenue. And the fact that you didn't use it, so let me put that into perspective, you didn't need it. Your revenues came in $380,000 to the good, more than what you expected last year. And your expenses were another, I think, $400,000. So you thought you needed money to reduce your 2020 budget, or 2000, whatever budget that you're in this year, going back to like 19. You didn't need that money. You didn't need that money because your revenues came in more favorable than what you expected, and so do your expenses. And that's why I'm saying that $500,000 only served as a placeholder when you developed your budget. And now in that fiscal year, you got to look and see what came in for new money. You got to look and see what went out the door, and you can see on that page that Miranda has blown up here, the fact that $600,000, the utilization of fund balance, that 500 that you're talking about, with another $100,000 for that other article that we've shown differently here, that $600,000, that's not new money. That's old money that you budgeted for to use as a mechanism in this budget that we're talking about here right now. And that's why you don't see any new money next to it. And the reason why it didn't go down in 2020 is because if you look at the positive and negative variances in the last column, your revenues came in stronger and your expenses came in stronger. Therefore, you actually thought, and you put $600,000 into your budget thinking that you were going to need it. This year, you didn't need it for many reasons. And the fact that you returned money to the bottom line, and the fact that you've got revenues that came in more favorable during the year, that's the column you want to focus on. It's the reality column, as opposed to the budget column of what you thought was going to happen and what you did according to what the statute. You did everything you were supposed to do, but you had a better year than what you thought you were going to do when you put your budget together, is the best way I can explain it.
Okay,
Can I-
and
can I-
so
can I-
it's added to it, and then you end up with the additional to get to the 1,045,000. Is that, and that's now your surplus?
Yeah, no, that's not your survey. Go back to 2 pages before, Miranda.
No,
Actually,
wait.
Miranda, go all the way back to page 18. I think it's the easiest thing. So go back 18, go back, Miranda, 16, I'm sorry.
16?
Yeah. So Priscilla, we're saying now that number is $1,054,000 that statute is talking about going forward 2 years. That was what we're saying.
Okay, so that has that in. Okay.
And Priscilla, if you want to have another conversation with Flora and I and Chris and Miranda, for the sake of dragging this conversation out, we'd be more than happy to kind of like put something together for you to go through the mechanics of the past few years, just to show you, that what happened, and then applying to that statute what happened. That might be of help too.
Can I interject for a moment here? So $1,054,022. Are you telling me that that is what we can offer our taxpayers for the FY22 for a tax relief?
I would argue, George, that's what you can offer your taxpayers for budget relief, for program expansion, for any cost overruns that you have, any matching funds that you need to have. That $1 million, you have not basically earmarked that for anything in any future budgets.
So just so I'm clear, when the town goes to write us a check 4 times a year, it's going to be, the total is going to be less that money?
No, what's going to happen is, George, is that number there, that $1,054,000, I'll assume in March of next year, you're going to have a plan to say, hey, we either need to move more money into capital reserve that the statute allows us to do. We need to either move more money to cover some other program expansion or some other budgeted expansion, you know, that you have. Miranda's telling you, you may need to use some more money for some legal things that you've got going on that we don't want to discuss right now. That money is there for a reason. And it's I can give you all the flavors. I just don't think it's prudent to discuss in public right now, as Priscilla kind of brought up some things. But you're going to need that money, George, for other things, and of which tax relief can be one of them.
So my last question here, what is going back to our taxpayers this year for FY to offset FY22?
I don't know what that number is, George.
Let me clarify my question. At the time of our town meeting, we thought, one of the thoughts was that we had about $545,000, approximately $45,000 we put into capital reserve fund, and expecting that the remainder was going to help with the tax burden.
So does anybody, I don't know about 22, but I know you just had a town meeting within the past 2 weeks. What did you guys use for tax relief? What did you tell your people at town meeting that you used for tax relief for FY22, next year's budget?
We didn't say anything for next year's budget as far as tax relief, because I should say I was under the assumption that whatever was surplus, unallocated surplus from FY20 would automatically go to ease the tax burden for the taxpayers for FY22.
And it can, George, but it could also go to other things too. Miranda kind of brought up some unfinished business that you're going to need to, address that has a dollar value attached to it. Possibly any cost overruns in the 21 budget that hasn't ended yet in 4 months. So what I'm saying is, whatever that number is, as Priscilla's been saying, you have a statutory obligation to carry it forward and to use it for those reasons. Whatever you don't use it for that statute says, then what's left over, you're supposed to use it for tax relief, George, in 2 years. That's what it says.
Okay, I think we've beat this horse to death. Maybe not quite, but I think we have a little bit of a direction here, at least. So, in effort to try to wrap this up, is there any more for Ron or Miranda? Do we have I guess more of a question, do we have a better idea of how we're supposed to move forward? And as he said, it could be more of a private meeting.
Would a workshop help you all? Would a workshop, George, help so we can kind of lay out some handouts and some progression so we can break it down over the past few years and more importantly, kind of get caught up to what you guys did in 22 and where you're going forward? Would that help to have a separate workshop, on this matter?
It's possible. Why don't we talk about that with Chris and Lynn and Flora, and maybe that's an option going forward. I think if we go that route, we won't want to be doing it in a public setting, so it'd probably have to be an executive session, a possibility, but that may be something we want to talk about. Chris, I see your message. I'm going to offer it back to Miranda if there's any more presentation. Real quick, one more time though, Priscilla, you're kind of the driver here. If you have any more questions on this specific portion, now would be the time.
The only thing I would like to have is I'd like to have a list of the pages that it affects. So that I can, I kind of tried to go through fast when I got the thing, but if that's an easy thing, if not, I'll go through and I'll figure it out.
We can help you,
Is
Priscilla.
it just the figures pages that I have to look at to see the differences?
The changes that we talked about with the differences between the two audits.
There's about 4 pages, Priscilla.
Because you gave us the final one last Friday, and now we've got a revised draft, so I just
Right, so
trying to
it's
make sure what I'm looking at. I had
statement,
9, 16, 8,
yep, statement C, statement D,
30, 60. I hadn't gone that far. E, okay.
yep, statement C
C or
and
E?
statement D.
Hang on, we're all talking again at once. So we got statement C, we got statement D. Miranda, go ahead.
Yep, those are the only two statements that are affected by the changes
Okay,
that were made.
excellent. Thank you. So if there was more Miranda, feel free to move on at will.
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay. Anything else for Ron or Miranda? I'm sorry. I was thinking of someone.
That's fine.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Priscilla, reach out if you to Floor or Chris or whoever. We're more than happy to, to further these conversations as opposed to tie you guys up anymore.
Yeah, we appreciate that very much. This was a big help, I think, and we'll communicate through the proper avenues here on out. So thank you guys both very much. Appreciate it. All set with Miranda and Ron?
Everybody be safe and well.
All right. Thank you guys. Take care. Okay. That was actually beneficial, and I appreciate them for coming out. That was my head spinning, but it was good. So, all right, where are we here now? We are appoint voting members. Let's see, 4E, appoint voting members to the WNESU board.
George, I'd like to continue being one.
So you are okay, so how many do we need? We need 3? What do we have now? We have 3, don't we? Because I'm a voting member. Jason, Terry. Okay. Anybody else burning desire want to attend every SU meeting?
I think Jason had his hand up,
Yeah,
so
I
that
see
would be the 3
All
of
right,
us.
So do we nominate? No, these are appointed, so we're good. So all in favor of Priscilla, myself, and Jason Terry as voting members of the WNESU board. All in favor, say aye. Priscilla,
Aye.
Jason Terry,
Aye.
Jason Benson,
Aye.
and aye for me. So what do we got? We got GS, PL, JT. So, okay. Appointed truant officer. Who was that last year? Was that the BFPD or the sheriff's office?
Bellows Falls Police Department was what you had last year.
Any ideas otherwise? Are we good to go forward with the same? All in favor? Do we have to vote on every one of these? Or can we just say, yeah, we're good? That's fine. All in favor of
Appointed, so it's-
appointing Bellows Falls Police Department as the truant officer? Priscilla, go ahead.
Yes.
Jason Terry,
I think as long as you appoint and nobody's objecting, we're fine.
Jason Benson, just to finish this one out, and we'll do that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, George, when you get to committees, you don't have to take a vote on everything. You just appoint.
Okay. Appoint representatives to the tech center's advisory councils. Need a little language there, a little verbiage. What's the purpose deal?
You guys don't have anyone on those committees, so you skip over the tech center.
So we're gonna scratch G.
RVTC and WRCC, you don't have to. It was just we use the same agenda for our board meetings for consistency purposes.
Gotcha. Okay. Moving on to H, appoint warrant signers. I've been signing warrants, so I don't have a problem with it. Occasionally, I forget, I see it come through and I forget to get back. Has anybody been an alternate in the past?
George, we had it so that all of us could sign.
Does everybody get them or no?
Yes,
Oh,
we had
okay.
everybody get them.
Oh, so if I drop the ball, one of you guys can pick me up. Okay. So I'll again be the primary signer. I don't have a problem with that. And if somebody from the business office says, "Hey, we haven't seen this yet," then feel free to reach out and give us a slap. Okay, so we're all warrant signers. Time and date and location of regular monthly meetings. I know I've had kind of some thoughts about this, and if nobody has any objections, I'll just go ahead and blurt them out there. Again, Megan, you're welcome to chat. I just can't vote. So I'd like to go to a once a month regular meeting with a second as an additional or alternate, as it was prior to this past year. I know this past year was crazy, but I'd like to see the third Monday of every month be the primary meeting day. And then the first Monday be not an alternate, but an extra day if needed. Meaning that the third Monday would be the full-blown meeting, principal reports, finance reports, committee reports, the whole deal, and then meet the first Monday as needed. And I know there was a lot of as needed this past year, but I'm kind of hoping that we can step away from that to some degree. That's not to say that we're just going to meet once a month, but if it's not needed, then so I'm throwing that out there, and like to hear you guys' thoughts. And the reason I said the third Monday for all the reports is because, by then, kind of the end of the month financials is in a better spot to kind of be able to view, and we get the finance budget versus actual reports at a time where that would be more appropriate, for questions or whatnot. So that's my thinking. Any other thoughts from you guys would be great.
Sounds good.
There's a lot of words from me and a real quick one from you.
The only concern I would have would be having the second one be your regular meeting and the first one being your alternative. So, because you cannot do a second one in the month if you've done the third meeting as your primary.
Do we need to? I mean, is that a?
I mean,
You know what I mean?
that
You know,
would be
you know, we-
I'd say.
it's still-
Otherwise, I don't see a problem with it.
It's just that, we don't, I guess part of it too is we don't really need to have principals come spend their evenings, twice a month getting full reports. I'd rather have them thinking about something else. And it's just me. I mean, I would do the first one as the primary if that's what you guys wanted, but I'm more inclined to stick with the third Monday. Megan, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just as a non-voting member tonight, I think the third Monday makes sense, and either way you spin it, it's a 2-week turnover to the alternate meeting, the second meeting you'll need. Either way you spin it. So if we're on the first, we'd be the third. If we're on the third, it's in 2 weeks, 2 Mondays from there. So to me, it doesn't make a huge difference, and I happen to like third Monday myself, even though I can't vote for one tonight.
Chris, go ahead. Thank you, Megan.
Just to give you background, other boards, Rockingham's the only board that has 2 meetings a month. Other boards, if they ever need a second meeting, like for instance, the high school, second Monday at 6:30, only fourth Monday if needed. So what they're saying, pretty much typically what you're saying, you guys want to have the first Monday, the third Monday, but the first one is if needed. Correct?
That's what I was saying. I mean, again, I'd consider something else for sure, but it seems to make sense to me. We've been meeting every, except for the last month or two, we've met twice a month for a long time, and I'm burnt out. So
Certainly what you guys are saying makes sense.
Okay,
Um,
so are we good with that, or any other, should be all right? All right, so third Monday of the month is our primary meeting date, with first Monday of the month as needed. And again, that'll be, the third Monday would be all reports, the whole shebang. So even if we did meet on the first Monday, it would be a stripped out version, and seems like a yes. Okay, write it down, lock it in. Where are we? J, establish newspaper to be used to announce school board function activities. What did we use? The Reformer last year?
Yes.
Stick with the Reformer, same thing? Same bat time, same bat channel? Everybody's good? Any objections?
Which one, George? I missed that.
The Reformer, the Brattleboro Reformer?
Which one are we doing? Okay,
Which one?
I
We're on,
had somebody suggest to me maybe adding the shopper, because the shopper goes out as a free thing to everybody in our particular area. So would that be a chance of just adding that?
I think it seems to make sense. If it's a free paper that everybody gets, even if they, whenever they, oh, never mind, I was gonna make a joke, but. So if everybody's okay with that, the shopper and the Reformer, Chris, does that seem like a doable thing? I don't want to put Nicole out too much. She's working hard for us all the time, but kind of makes sense to me. So if
Nope, that's fine.
okay, good call. Shopper and Brat Reformer. Okay, where are we here? 5 committee assignments. Now, Chris, you sent out a poll, if you will, on what people had interest in. Is that for a purpose of this meeting, or just kind of go through and what do people want to do, or how do we want to?
We could use that. I mean, I think it's kind of combined everyone, so it wasn't broken out into.
Okay, so we'll
I can tell you the in those results, George, the least popular committee was the audit committee. I don't think anyone signed up to be on that one, so.
Nobody?
No.
Now, so?
Or
Let's see.
just go down through them, because I didn't send mine back in. I've been really busy. So if you go
Okay,
down
no,
through them-
so we'll go through them, but before we do that, are some of these strictly Rockingham committees and some SU committees, or is there anything that is separate from just this group, which it looks like?
In the past, Rockingham has not had a building and grounds, but does not mean that you would not want one moving forward. So beyond that, everything else is on the board.
So would we want to, well, again, I guess the question is that in SU, who owns the buildings?
Well, the buildings and building and grounds, you're talking about the Rockingham Central.
Okay, so that'll be a Rockingham only. So the Building and Grounds Committee at the SU level will be possibly a different makeup.
Yes, it would.
Okay,
This is just for the Rockingham board, maintaining the schools that you currently fall under your purview.
anybody want, how many are we looking? Probably no more than 2, right? Because that would be 2. So anybody want to be in Building and Grounds Committee? Jason Terry wants to be. Anybody else? I met Jason Benson. I saw your mic go off. You itching to be on the building grounds?
Plus Megan was jumping into it there. She looked excited.
Megan, what's
Just
So
felt
it's-
bad, but go ahead, Jason Benson.
3 would be good, because then if you have two there, that's enough to run the committee anyway. So having 3 would be good.
isn't that a quorum?
No, but this is a committee assignment, so it's perfectly okay.
George, I'm on the high school one, so I don't necessarily need to be on this one, but
Okay.
I can offer some to this
Yeah.
one too. Whatever.
No, that'd be good. I'd like to keep those lines completely separate. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Chris, go ahead.
But you guys don't have to decide if the members of a building and ground. I mean, if something comes up, you guys are a small enough board, you guys can all tackle it.
Appoint it as a go or tackle it. All right.
Yeah.
Teacher and support staff negotiations. That one's SU, right? So we already.
Jason's been our representative, so he's the one that should be on that one.
Yeah, I agree.
We have one.
Any objections? Okay.
Jason
You
Terry?
skipped Budget and
Yeah, Jason
finance,
Terry,
but
so
you
he'll
skipped
get-
budget and finance, but we've all done budget and finance together before, so.
Yeah, that's not my strong suit. So I actually think we should go back to budget and finance. So Jason Terry is our representative for teacher staff negotiation. I do want to go back to budget and finance because I think this is going to be a big thing to help us all going forward. So, and I don't even know how what this is going to look like or whatnot, but I'm going to assume that is for just Rockingham as well.
Yeah, everything tonight, George, is, that the committees, it's pretty much Rockingham, like the finance budget committee. This is just to look over what you guys have been doing.
Yeah.
And so last year, you guys had the entire board. You didn't designate just one or two people.
Well, I'm thinking of instances like tonight. Do we have to tie up everybody's time talking about stuff like that? I don't know. Do we want to have a committee or just whack at it all together?
I'd like to be on it.
Oh, you're on it.
I would think, you guys all bring something different to the table. I don't see why you'd have a different committee. It's not like you have a huge board. Usually committees are based if you have like a 15-member board. I would say you guys have been doing a good job plucking away at it. I would continue that approach and have the whole board.
Any objections to Chris's suggestion?
No, I think all of us need to be involved on it. The only thing would be like for understanding specific things, if we wanted to do just 3 of us for that, and then all of us meet for all of the stuff would be the only thing, or we can do all of us, whatever the other members
Right.
want.
All of us? Who wants all of us? I see head nod there. Jason Terry, Jason Benson, what do you got?
Yeah, I
If
think
that
all
means
of
we only have to have
Not
3
Priscilla,
of us
hang on.
there anyway, so it's okay. So
Hang
go
on,
ahead.
hang on. Yeah, okay, thanks, Jason. So, all right, so we'll just all do what we've been doing there. Hopefully we'll get better at it. SIP team representatives, continual improvement teams. That's like from my experience in the last couple of years, it's like a once or twice a year commitment.
Yeah, I was on it last year and we met once. So.
Yep, I was on it 2 years and I met twice with people. So that's kind of an easy way to engage with principals, other folks on the team. It's like we said, once or twice. Anybody want to get in on that? Chris,
I
go
think we
ahead.
just need one, and if Jason wants to do it, that's great.
Chris, go ahead.
I mean, just to give everyone a little background on this committee here is kind of, you're looking at, you can call it a SIP, you can call it recovery team, which we're calling it this year because of COVID. And some of you outside of education call it a strategic plan. And so it's just the board taking a look at the SIP recovery team strategic plan to make sure that it reflects what their board is wanting on it. And it's tied to education, instruction, curriculum, long-term planning, and how we're going to get that done. But it's one, maybe twice a year. I would lean this year more towards maybe 2 looks at it because they're going away from the continuous improvement plan and approaching it as a recovery plan based because of all the stuff with COVID. But it's very education-based committee, for any of you who are interested.
Yeah, half the stuff that I heard was Chinese, and there are a lot of acronyms and words that I had no idea. But the last one I was with with Mr. Nemlich, and they did a very nice job presenting. But it'd be a good thing if a couple of people want to get in on that.
I've got an educational background. I'd be glad to do it if Jason wants to as an alternate backup. Or Megan, you had your hand up if you're really
Well,
interested.
Right,
Don't
but-
wanna
We'll take two, and I see Megan's hand up. Jason, are you still interested in doing that?
I can back out of that one.
All right. Priscilla, you in?
I could do that, yes.
SIP team representative. MA and PL. Audit committee. Chris is,
George, that is the committee
hang on,
that
hang on.
goes
Hang
to
on.
the supervisor union that I was the rep for last year.
Hang on, Priscilla. Hold up just a quick second. So the audit committee, Chris, this is for the, as Priscilla's alluding to, this is for the entire SU, or is this just our Rockingham group? I think it should be just our Rockingham group because it'd be items like we talked about tonight, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was originally set up as Priscilla started to address about all the areas of concern we had in the business office last year. So it was kind of like an oversight kind of checks and balances committee. But, moving forward, you could look at it as what you guys are doing tonight, asking the questions on the audit.
So I see, hang on just a second, Priscilla, I see your hand. I'll get you right after this. So when I'm talking about a lot of this stuff, I don't, it's not my forte. So my thinking is that maybe it is more appropriate to have a couple of people on a committee rather than a full group. But I'm happy to hear other, comments, questions, whatever. Priscilla, go ahead.
Okay, one part of this is to do the rep to the central audit committee, which is what I would like to continue with that because I was on that one last year. But then we can also do the audit for this, and I would like to do that as well.
Well, I guess it goes back to the intent. I guess I'll leave that, Chris, to you. What's the intent of is it, if it's an SU audit committee, then
Yeah, I mean,
Both, George. Sorry, Chris.
that's okay. No, Priscilla's right. It's really both because we didn't want to abandon the SU audit committee just right now. We wanted to keep it in place for now. But like we said, it was initially for the SU, but I would say that I would recommend that you do it for the Rockingham district as well, because and appoint maybe one person to, on your board to review the audit and bring questions to the board when the auditors are presenting like tonight. But yeah, I mean, it is right now as a SU audit committee, but you could also put it in place and have someone else review the audit and pose the questions to the auditors.
so far what I'm hearing, any objections to Priscilla being on the SU audit committee? Hearing none. So Priscilla, you're on the SU audit committee. And then how do we want to approach the Rockingham audit committee? Do we want to do it as a whole or any representatives that would report back? How do we want to do that? Megan, go ahead. I see you put your mic off.
Yeah, I think we'd all benefit doing it as a whole at the Rockingham board. I think
Okay.
no harm in knowing too much, right?
Any objections to all of us being just part of what like we've been doing? Hearing none. So we do not have a Rockingham audit committee. It's just we have a board. Policy committee. I would actually like to be on the policy committee. Chris, go ahead.
Fair warning, there's going to be a lot of meetings in the policy committee. COVID has really put us behind in regards to policy. So, once things settle in, I will be scheduling monthly meetings.
Monthly? Not twice a month, 3 times a month.
Well, it depends. It will be at least monthly. We're not going to be able to get much done more than 3 times. No, 1 to 2 times a month. So yeah.
Well, I'd actually like to be on the policy committee. So are you looking for 1 person, 2 people? What are you looking for? Any objections?
1 to 2, 1 to 2. It's up to you.
Any objections to me being one of them? Anybody else have a burning desire?
I was the alternate last year and I'll be glad to do that with you, George.
You're a busy gal, Priscilla.
I know, I gotta keep busy. Get out of this COVID slump,
Well, I think,
unless someone else wants to do it.
well, if we're gonna have 2 people, I'd like it to be 2 that committed, not just an alternate, but that's my view. If one of those 2 can't make it, then fine, that'd be great. Priscilla to be an alternate. I mean, just one's fine too. If somebody later on says, hey, I want to be part of the policy committee, I think I really would like to do that personally. So
I meant I was an alternate last year, so I was willing to do it. So. But
excellent.
if someone else wants to speak up, please.
Hearing nothing. All right,
Just
I'll take policy with Priscilla as the alternate.
I meant I was willing to do it with you, George, as a representative.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But we also need to do it. We also will need to do it 4 hours because there are Rockingham policies that are not SU policies. So we also need for the Rockingham board to do that as well, to look at our policies.
Can we,
Unless we want to do both, it's up to you. I
well,
mean,
kind of
we're going to do the SU first, so ours may not even get there. So
I'm kind of thinking that we should look at policies, as part of a regular routine. And hey, even if we just read one policy a meeting and we like this, do we want any changes? And I also think we should try to stay somewhat in line with the SU to limit confusion. So maybe as a, maybe we can kind of figure that out as we go, starting with SU policies, and then how does that trickle down? I don't know, but I agree that policies need to be looked at. So maybe we kind of figure that out later as we go, or that type of thing. Is that good? Adopt Robert's Rules of Order. I like almost all of Robert's rules. There's a couple things I want to bring up, and I know someone else has brought them up in the past too. But I think we should have seconds when someone makes a motion, and we should have seconds when somebody calls a vote. Why we waste our time if not more than one person wants to talk about something or vote on something? I'm not sure how that falls. We are a small board, but it doesn't mean we have to operate under every letter of the small board of Robert's Rule of Small Boards, right? Priscilla, go ahead. I see you.
I make a motion that we adopt Robert's Rules of Order for small boards. We're only 5, and that's written for 12 and under. And basically most of what we've been doing has been working, and that we've been under that for years. So I would go ahead with that. And then, if something's not working, then we can.
Well, okay.
I think the reason for not having to have a second is because it's, by the time you come up with a motion, most part, that's what the board wants anyway.
Sometimes. Any other, so we have a motion on the floor. Discussion on the motion. Megan.
Again, I know I'm not voting tonight, but if we're gonna go with small board rules, which I have tried my very best to find exactly what small board rules are, and it's not easy. Even the information I found on smaller boards, it's always encouraged for seconds. And personally, some of the more chaotic meetings that we've lived through since I came on could have been avoided with seconds. So even though I'm not voting tonight, I really would like to see us move forward with seconds personally. Just to, there's no reason to discuss a motion if only one person is interested in this motion, if only one person supports it. And it would have, and then a clear understanding of calling to vote really would have streamlined a couple of, or a meeting in particular. So that's my 2 cents.
Any other discussion? Motion on the floor to adopt
Could
Robert.
I could accept as a friendly amendment doing Robert's small rules for the Robert's rules for small boards, but to include a second for our motions.
Friendly amendment. Does somebody have to suggest that, or are you just restating your motion as such?
Yeah, just accepting it as a friendly amendment. So,
Okay.
that's all.
So the motion currently is to accept Robert's rules of order for small boards while
Speculation that we would do second for motions.
for motions. And what about the call to vote? Call the vote. That was mentioned as well.
That's fine if we need that. Usually you don't want to limit discussion too much with just 5 of us.
Well, that's the idea. I don't think we do want to limit discussion if we're not ready for a vote. But anyway,
Then you don't need it.
What's that? Go ahead.
Then you wouldn't need, then you don't want anything in there about call to vote. You want to leave it the way it is.
Well, the way it is that somebody calls the vote and then we have to vote, right?
No. Under small rules, no.
Now I'm thoroughly confused.
You're
Meg-
okay, George. You
Megan,
don't
go
have
ahead.
to do that. You're not limiting discussion if you approve the motion I made.
So George,
Megan,
I was hoping maybe Priscilla could give us a little, what's the difference when you say small board, when small board rules, what are the main differences between just following, a motion needs a second and a call to vote needs a second? What's different?
Well, one thing
What's
I can
different
say
is,
is that I can participate in discussion. I believe that's part of it.
The call to vote is not there. So it doesn't limit the discussions. It allows people to speak more than twice to a motion, or to speak more than twice in the discussion. With 5 members, it's kind of, otherwise you only have 2 times. But with the small boards, it allows it to be friendlier. And what we've been doing has been working for the most part. So with the adjustment of adding the second to the motions, that was logical. Basically, those are the big differences. Yeah,
All right, as long as we're not limiting discussion because one person wants to just get to a vote, I'm perfectly accepting of that. And not
right.
that-
And in Robert's rules, you do limit it, but with small boards, you do not.
All right, I have to recheck my research. Okay. With that understanding, are we all good with accepting Robert's Rules of Order with seconds for motions? All in favor? Jason Benson,
Yes.
Jason Terry, Priscilla,
Yes.
and George, yes. Okay. Where are we? New business. Okay, yeah, new business for discussion action, if any. Services provided by Green Mountain Traffic Control. Chris, you're up.
So I wanted to bring this up to the board because it's going through the invoices, and this is how it was always invoices, but what I found is that we have no contract with Green Mountain Traffic Control. We get invoices for their services, and they do the crossing guard work that at the I think it's Atwood, corner of Atwood, where their central school is. And I'm just going to call up my invoice here.
It's Atkinson and School Street, just for clarity.
Atkinson and School Street. So so there was I found a discrepancy in billing. The invoice showed charges reflecting 7.5 hours per week at an hourly rate at $26.75. and the total invoices were $263. So that pretty much breaks down to an hour and a half per day for 5 days per week. And so we've only been in school for 4 days a week. We've been getting charged for 5 days a week. And then on top of that, we also currently pay for any school vacation time that we have for the crossing guard. So now that I know that, I need guidance from this board to whether or not, we're going to pay for time that we're not using a crossing guard. Right now, we're paying for Wednesdays when school's not in session, and we do pay the $200.63 every time for a week during the vacations. And so initially, I sent a letter to the Green Mountain Traffic Control and asked them if they, I said, has been charged for the Wednesdays that school has not been in session and since the beginning of the year. So just the Wednesdays, we're up to $535 of charges that we're paying for, and school's not in session. And then you tag on another $200 a week for any school vacations we have. The response that Flora got is simply that they change their invoices to a flat fee rather than an hourly rate. But moving forward, I just need guidance from the board. Are you guys willing to continue to pay for services that we don't need them for? Or, do you want me to go back and try to recoup the money based on the old invoices that were $26.75 an hour?
Flora, go ahead.
Yes, I did review that with the company, and they stated they didn't want to adjust the invoices. All they did was send back the same invoices and then adjusted the wording stating that it wasn't an hourly anymore, that it will be then a flat fee. So I don't know how else we could approach to recoup.
Is that a flat fee for the year or a flat fee for the what?
For the week, because they will put the invoice, the detail of the invoice, they will put an amount of hours, like how many hours it was a week and how much per hour they were charging. Since the hourly mat didn't match with being 1 day on remote and not providing services for that day, they then adjusted the invoice, changing it, just stating that this is a flat fee. So that way they wouldn't have to give back anything to us. That way we just couldn't recoup.
So looking forward, saying a flat fee even for weeks that we're not in school?
Yes, we'd pay the flat fee for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We'd still have to pay for the Wednesdays. And then any school vacations, we'd still be paying for those services, even though we don't need them. That's why I'm coming to the board.
Yeah, it seems to me that we'd want to get some something solid, solid language around that somewhere with them or with whoever you want, because I don't care what the rate is if nobody's in school for a week of vacation, flat rate or not. I mean, I'm less concerned about a few $100s for that we are saying we should be paid back. Is that right?
Well, that's just based on
I see you, Priscilla. Hang on just a second.
It's based on the Wednesdays up to, I think, last month. We're being charged for the hourly rate. So just for Wednesdays, it's up to $535 that we've been paying just for Wednesdays that we have not been in session. So if you look on top of that, you put in another $200 for February vacation, another $200 for the December break, and then you're looking at another $200 for April vacation. So that's 6,
7, 8.
so you're over a little over $1,200 now.
Yep.
For services that we're not in session, but we're paying for, and that's why I'm coming to the board. I'll go any direction you want. I just need directive from the board.
Well, I've got a caveat to that real quick, but Priscilla, go ahead if you.
Just two questions. Is it per school year rather, and not including summer, I would assume? And how much is it per week?
Well, it's not, we don't have a contract with them. We just go through invoices. And what it is right now, it's $200.63 a week. And so the invoices that we get are 7.5 hours per week at an hourly rate at 26.75. So you figure it's an hour and a half a day. So it's what, a little over $30, $28 for every hour and a half.
$40 per day for a 5-day week.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, with how tight everything is and to continue to be, I wouldn't be doing my job if I did not bring this to the board. So,
Yeah, but are we going to be able to get someone that would be willing to do the crossing walk? Because think about the hours that they have to be there and how limited they are as far as getting anything else. I'm looking at, $40 a day. I mean, I can see excluding vacations, week-long vacations might be really good. But I'm thinking that's really not a lot to pay somebody to stand out there in sloppy weather and possibly get hit with a sliding car on ice or stuff or that kind of thing. So that would concern me. I'm not sure what the price should be, but certainly want somebody there taking care of the children.
Jason Benson, is that a hand up I see?
Yes, it is.
Go ahead.
My question is, are there alternative service providers that we could compare apples to apples and see what the rates are?
I believe there is. And Chris, I see your, actually, before I get back to you, Chris, Jason Terry, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
I had a few questions. One, does it only go back to January? Does it go back further?
yes, it goes back ever since they've been doing the crossing guard, which predates me.
Okay. Two, I think before we vote, we need to actually take a look at the invoices, if possible, and compare what is on the invoice and what it was changed to and what the dates are of those invoices. And then lastly, I vaguely remembered, because I live right around where the crossing guard does his job every day. At first, he does a great job, fantastic job. Very polite, takes a lot of beef from a lot of people, and that's not fair. Does a really good job. And I just remember last time this happened, the police were supposed to do it, but then they didn't show up or something like that. I vaguely remember, so pardon me on that. But there was a big mess, and then the gentleman ended up coming back. It's one of those things you don't notice until it's not there anymore. But anyway, so those are my 2 cents. Thanks.
Chris, what do you want to do?
So just to answer some of the questions, this is not about the services that they provide us and saying that they don't provide us good services. This is solely about paying for services that we don't get. And we all went through a very difficult budget season. Every dollar counts. And so I'm not questioning the services that they're providing us. I'm questioning the money that we're paying for services that we don't need. I've been around many different SUs in Windham County, all of them actually, and
Cutting out. I think we lost Chris. Am I the only one that can't hear him?
He's froze.
See Lynn giving.
Like
All right.
had a
Well,
question there.
reestablishing connection over there. I see Megan's hand up first. Priscilla, then go ahead.
It was a comment to Chris. It just seems like he inherited this as it is, and it would be a good time, like he and Flora could actually have a contract or some kind of terms moving forward, because it may be that we can't recoup any of this because that's just kind of an inherited situation. So hopefully, moving forward, we'll be able to get a handle on things like this with terms that work for the school district.
Yeah, I kind
That
of,
makes sense.
I don't really have any interest in going back and fighting for money. I mean, like, anybody who drives that street any time of day or during school, he's in control down there, and I would not want him not there. I would not want somebody there is more appropriate, what I meant to say. But point being, what are we going to do looking forward is my Priscilla, go ahead.
The other thing we need to consider here is we are hopefully moving to 5 days a week in the not too far distant future with the way things are going, which means that this man is going to be doing more than what he was doing for the same pay that he was getting because it's per week. So that might be a concern right at this time. So I'm not sure we want to change anything until at least the end of this school year, when we can look into maybe, like Megan said, doing a contract and getting things set up and getting them organized for the next year.
Oh, before going too much further, Chris, I see you kind of cut out, and we're kind of kept going a little bit without you. But
Want me to repeat?
I'd kind of like I'd like to see some terms, something solid figured out. Whether it was, however it goes, it shouldn't just be hey, here's a bill, and yeah, we'll pay it. All right, what are we paying for, and exactly what is being provided. However anybody else wants to approach that, it's not really up to, well, moving forward is what I'm more concerned about. Chris, go ahead.
So, I think, moving forward that, I've just to see if we can move forward on this, not knowing where the board was going to go. I've already posted the position on School Spring and, only on School Spring, and based on what, the board wants, I can post it in the Reformer and Keene Sentinel and stuff like that. I've been through all the invoices like Jason has asked. And we're paying the same amount this year as we did last year. So I had all the invoices sent to me from the business office. I did review them all, but I think, like I said, most of the SUs, and at least the ones I've been in Windham County, they employ their own crossing guard. So I think we can find like a parent or something to pay a daily rate when they're going there, save money, and have a parent or someone who's interested in being a crossing guard. It's just a matter of making sure the kids are safe. We need one. But I'm not saying we want to bail on Green Mountain traffic. I just want to explore other options because money is tight.
So when you kind of stepped out, a couple of us had stated that the guy does a great job down there doing that. So that's not being taken away from anybody. I'd like to. I would kind of leave it to you, but at the same time, I'd have a conversation with Green Mountain Traffic about terms. What is it going to look like going forward? Or, if you're not satisfied with that, then then fine, look elsewhere. But that's just my 2 cents. Anybody else? Jason, Terry, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify, Chris, there was an invoice that had hourly. And then when you said, hey, you're not working Wednesdays and school vacations, then they came back and said, oh no, it's per week. I just want to make sure I heard you say that right.
Yes, that's accurate.
That seems weird. Thank you.
Priscilla, go ahead.
I was told on that it really, they were figuring it weekly, but they were breaking it down hourly so that we would see it. But anyway, what I said when you were out of the room, Chris, was that, we're looking at increasing to 5 days a week. So this person that's been getting this salary is actually going to be working more than what they have been working. So it seems kind of a shame to cut it off right here in the middle of the year, but I think we should explore options and see and get a contract for next year. But right now, just kind of stick with what we've got, for the simple reason that we've got part of March, April, May, and just a little bit of June. We don't have a lot. My cat's getting up into things. Knock her down, sorry. So that we can just kind of take our time and get it right for next year rather than rushing. But I love your idea of looking into things.
So I think Chris is looking for something solid from us tonight. Is that?
No, I think the biggest thing is based on is that the primary purpose for me bringing it to your attention was that I am going to explore different options, but it's not a matter of, like I said, not questioning the fine services that Green Mountain Traffic gives us. I think it was my job to bring to your attention that we were being charged for services that were not rendered. That's the biggest.
I think the hard part is going to be, well, we do it this way. Well, we thought it was this way, and that sort of thing. So that's why I'm more of a looking forward kind of mindset right now, not so much, all right, let lay where it lays, and then, terms. What are the terms going forward if we're going to continue with them, and otherwise, keep looking or whatever. If you're looking for a directive from us, I guess it would be I need a clear, hey, I want to do this. Say yes or no.
No, it's not so much a directive. I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Okay.
It's something I need to look into based on, what I've learned. And it's one of those things that it's always been done this way, but when something comes to your attention, you can't ignore it. I have to, let fiscally responsible and let you know that we've been, that the invoice was broken up as an hourly, whether it was intentions to always be a weekly charge, that's not what I saw. So I needed to investigate it. What I found is that we're paying for days that you don't need services. And I'm going to, I'm going to see if I can resolve the situation and only pay for the days that we need, because we're not built on any contract. This is just by an invoice week by week basis. But I wouldn't be doing my job.
Seems like a one-sided invoice. So, we got to have an understanding of what we're buying, right? So
exactly, and it's my job to make sure that we're not spending money for services that we're not getting. It's one thing if we signed a contract, but I looked into that, we hadn't. And like I said, it has nothing to do with where we're getting bad services. We get great services by them. It's just a matter of trying to resolve this. And if we can't resolve it or whatever, I still think we might be able to do it with most likely for next year, or depending on, how this plays out, have someone locally for us in the SU do it, because I know for a fact, places like Brattleboro, they have their own paraeducators or crossing guards that do one or both as their crossing guards. And that's very typical for supervisory unions in districts to have their own crossing guards on their own base salary, because like any services, we can control it more. That's why we do local busing. That's why we do local food services. It just makes sense. So it's just another thing that, we have to look at if we're really looking at how we're spending money. This is a good example of that.
Okay, well, I guess I don't. Where's our place in this right now? I know you're letting us know, but is there something you're looking from us, or is it just an informational piece? Because I think you kind of get the feeling of what each of us board members is kind of feels. We don't want to be paying for services we don't want. At the same time, what is it going to look like going forward? And if we're going to stay with them, I would like some clarity. So that's probably some conversation you guys would probably want to have. So anyway, our thoughts have been relayed.
That's all I needed, George. Thank you.
All right. Anything else on this topic from any board members? Hearing none.
The only thing I would say, George, is that it's $800 a month right now. So that means we've got April and May and basically 3 months left, because we've got half this month and half of June, maybe. So we're only looking at $2,400. And If we go to the 5 days, that's gonna be most of those days, so it'd be about $40 a day. If you only had the 4 days, then it would equate to $50 a day, which that's less than what a substitute gets in the classroom for a day. So it's not a lot of money to retain this guy that's doing a great job from everybody's viewpoint that I've heard. So I would want to tread lightly on it for the rest of this year at least, so that we don't lose somebody and end up with nobody doing it. But I love looking at the options as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to reiterate, if I was unclear about a bill that I had got in the mail, I'd want clarity on that. So that's what I'm going to leave it at. So anyway, okay, any final comments on this subject? Hearing none. Where are we here? Director's comments. All right, excellent. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Thank you, Priscilla.
Love having the opportunity to work with every member of this board. You guys really make it pleasant and accept all of the differences of opinion on the board because we're all individuals. Love each of you.
Next, Jason Terry turned your mic off. Go ahead.
I'm good.
Turned your mic off to say that. Okay. Megan's laughing. Megan, you're up.
I just want to say, like, big old group hug. We made it through the first town meeting. I didn't even think I was gonna like make it in the door. So thanks to everybody in all parts, and hey, we did it.
Mr. Benson.
Yeah, thanks guys for dealing with the town meeting when I was out salting, but it is what it is. Hopefully this year, the end of this year, finishes out well, and next year we can see some normalcy for everybody and some sanity. And like working with everybody here. It's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Couple things for me. We got to catch up on minutes here soon. I know didn't want to add them on tonight because it was a long meeting already, but we're backed up on minutes. And also speaking of minutes, we might want to wrap some thoughts around what we want to see in the minutes. I know there's questions of things previously that weren't reflected, but how is anybody supposed to know, taking the minutes, how are they supposed to know what's wanted, right? So minutes, we want to be thinking about that. Thankful that 7th and 8th grade are back in 4 days a week. Yeah, like somebody else said, I forget who, Priscilla, somebody. Of course, now we're setting the sights a little farther on 5 days, but 4 days, that's huge. That's a big thing, and I'm thankful to that for that. Last comment is last year was pretty tough, and I've accepted this seat again, this role. I'm going to send something out to you guys, and some of it is suggestions, some of it's going to be requirements for me to remain in this seat for another go of it. And if some of these things that I'm saying, this is how I need to operate, if it's unacceptable, then I fully accept that and will happily give up this chair. But last year, circumstance related, it was brutal and it beat me up. So I know there's other people out in this world who are more suited for this spot. This is where I am. I'm going to send something out to you guys. I'm happy to talk about it at a meeting if we want. This meeting's been long enough, and there's jotted down a bunch of thoughts. But anyway, here we go again. So that said, I guess I'm good. So love to you all, and date of next meeting. Do we need another meeting on the first Monday of the month? Is there a reason we do? Mr. Terry, go ahead.
I'm assuming you're going to ask about agenda items for the next meeting as well. That's normally how you do it. But I know in the collective bargaining, and I'm not up to date with all of that stuff going through negotiations and whatever. But I know there's something in there by April 15th. We got to offer contracts to teachers. And I'd like to understand how that works as far as, you know, the steps and whatever. And I don't want Mr. Pratt, or I don't even know how it works. I don't want somebody to miss an opportunity to not offer a contract or offer contracts. I want to make sure whoever's supposed to get a contract gets a contract. So I don't know if we need a meeting. I'd prefer not to, believe it or not, but I just want to don't miss that opportunity. And, you know, if we're held accountable for it, I want to make sure that we do the right thing. That's all. So maybe somebody can help me out with that. Priscilla, Chris, somebody, anybody. Thanks.
So under this item of date of next meeting, is that something that we would need a meeting on the first Monday to discuss, Chris, or is it something, seems like an informational piece, but at the same time, yeah, I don't know. What do you
It's
thought?
frozen. George, I'm thinking that the 5th or the 19th. The 19th, I think it's during vacation, but you can confirm that with Chris.
I didn't hear.
So
I didn't hear what
the
you just
19th, I think, is vacation. So the 5th, the 19th is the third Monday in April, but the 5th is the first Monday, and that's 3 weeks from now. So we might want to adjust it and do the 5th. Because teachers and principals will be on vacation, I believe, the 19th. Or am I wrong on the vacation week, Chris?
Where the heck are we? April 19th. 2, 3. Chris, you looking it up?
No, I believe Priscilla's correct.
Date of next meeting is. So any thoughts, guys? So then what are we going to do? We're going to have the 5th and then skip until another month and a half? Or, I mean, what are we going to do on the 5th? Are we going to have principal reports? Or what are we going to do?
George, why don't we just schedule it for the 5th, and if we need to change anything, we will.
Just to get out of here tonight.
Yeah, we should schedule for the 5th because the 19th, we don't have any, and we won't have any meetings at all in April scheduled. So you really need to schedule one in April.
Yeah, we got to have
One a
it.
month.
All right, well, we'll figure out the next one, I guess, after that. So the 5th, April 5th. No, wait a minute. April 5th is the day after Easter. Are we there that day? We're there Monday, right? Monday after Easter. Yeah, all right, April 5th. All right, any other business?
We need minutes from town meeting for both 2020 and for 2021 because they weren't in the published report. So we need those.
That's right. Yeah, those are in addition to the minutes I mentioned before. That she's right. There wasn't minutes for the previous year. So, all right. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn if we're all good. Nobody wants to leave. Jason, Terry. I get a second.
Second.
Following the rules. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Benson. All in favor? Au revoir. Bye-bye. Good night, everyone.